Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. We're in a city council meeting, and it's Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. We'll start this meeting tonight with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom,
Here.
Weifenbach, Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Jones,
Here.
Lehman, Solomon, Evans, Drew.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to have an invocation by Pastor Randy Brock, and following the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? Father, I ask your blessing upon these proceedings today, and I pray, Father, God, a blessing over these councilmen and women, Lord God, who have given their lives to serve our city. And I pray, Father, they would never feel taken for granted, Lord God. I pray that you'd guide this meeting. I pray, Father, your presence would be felt, and that, Lord God, everything we do, God, here in Rapid City would bring honor and glory to you. So we begin this meeting by invoking your name and thanking you, Lord, for helping us, Lord God, with hard decisions, Lord Jesus. And we're asking for your wisdom in them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now for the adoption of the agenda. This is where the council may vote to adopt the agenda as written or make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion? Motion by Lehman to adopt, and a second by Nordstrom. All in favor of the adoption of the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. And now we're going to go to Laura Armstrong for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mayor. You did a good job. The Martin Luther King Jr. Day yesterday, and I just thought that we would carry that on this evening at our council meeting. So on November 2nd, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill into the White House Rose Garden designating a federal holiday honoring Martin Luther King Jr., and it's to be observed on the third Monday of January. The following is a proclamation by then President George W. Bush, which was 16 years ago. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a visionary American and a dedicated leader who believed deeply in liberty and dignity for every person. His faith and courage continue to inspire America and the world. We honor his life and his work. Growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. King witnessed firsthand the injustice of a segregated society. He realized that change was necessary to ensure the full promise of our Constitution for all Americans, with his charismatic leadership awakening the conscience of America. Dr. King's dream inspired our nation with what he called a certain kind of fire that no water could put out. Since Dr. King's involvement in the civil rights movements in the 1950s and the 1960s, Americans have witnessed the power of the law to prevent injustice and encourage the finest qualities of our nation. Last year, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Once this landmark legislation was signed into law, Americans could no longer be denied a room in a hotel or a table at a restaurant because of their race. Our nation has accomplished much over the past 40 years. Our journey towards justice and equality has not always been an easy one, and it is not over. However long the journey, our destination is set: liberty and justice for all. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed in the good that exists in all men and women. We will Remember the work of Dr. King as we continue striving to meet the founding ideals of our great nation. So therefore, George W. Bush, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in him by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, proclaimed Monday, January 17th, 2005, as the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday. He encouraged all Americans to observe the day with appropriate activities and programs that honor the memory and the legacy of Dr. King. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Laura. And now, I'm going to call on Nikki Hughes. Can you come to the front, please? Also, the Ward 2 City Council members will join me up here at the podium. It is my pleasure to honor the achievements of a local resident, Nikki Hughes, as the Robbinsdale Neighborhood Watch Coordinator. It is volunteers such as Nikki that help renew and sustain the Rapid City spirit by committing themselves to address the needs of their neighborhood. Rapid City's greatest natural resource is its people, and we rely on the efforts of volunteers to enrich our Rapid City community. The Robbinsdale Neighborhood Watch is increasingly recognized as a partner with government and the police department in building a strong and safe community. Nikki has shown that she truly cares about her community and the people in it. She has shared her time, energy, and knowledge to better Rapid City and is most deserving of our recognition and appreciation. So, Nikki, on behalf of your neighborhood and Rapid City and the entire City Council, thank you for being a volunteer in your community. Appreciate it.
She's good at both. She's good at both.
Okay, I'll just say a couple words. Thank you for this opportunity.
Let's bring Max up.
Yes, please. I definitely, when I walked into the police station, I had an agenda, and I had a clipboard, and I had a notebook, and I had a mission. I definitely wanted to get a neighborhood watch going in Rapid City and kind of build that sense of community. And I walked in, and Officer Taylor met me, and I was shaking in my knees. And he purposely asked me, like, what is my mission? What is my purpose? What am I going to do? And I just kind of had it planned out, because I think that having a neighborhood watch builds community, but also it builds like that neighborhood feeling again that's gone. And this is an honor, and I appreciate it. And we are growing. We have gained about 355 people since April. So, and it's an engaging website. So it's Facebook and it's Rapid City Neighborhood Watch, and anybody's able to join us. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is general public comment. And this is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. So I'll call your name. You can go to the podium here. You'll have 3 minutes. You can watch these lights over here to see how you're doing on time. And first we have Nick Urey.
Thank you for letting me speak. Today I sent all of you guys a PDF document, my complaint regarding Joel Lundeen and the City Attorney's Office. I've been very vocal against any shutdown or mask mandates. I believe this has caused me to be targeted by some of our highest ranking city officials. There seems to be a pattern developing from our city government, and that is a pattern of retaliation and censorship. When members of this community exercise their First Amendment right, they are met with retaliation. It is having a chilling effect, and this can be seen in the formal complaint of Joel Lundeen. Our own administrative assistant wanted her name redacted because she was afraid of retaliation and retribution. She is afraid. What is a chilling effect? Here's the definition from Wikipedia. In a legal context, a chilling effect is the inhibition or discouragement of a legitimate exercise of a natural and legal right by the threat of legal sanction. The right that is the most often described as being suppressed by a chilling effect is the U.S. constitutional right to free speech. A chilling effect may be caused by legal action, such as passing of a law, the decision of a court, or the threat of a lawsuit. Any legal action that would cause people to hesitate to exercise a legitimate right, freedom of speech or otherwise, for the fear of legal repercussions. I'm here today to make my complaint against Joel Lundeen public, just like my complaint was made public. A former employee made the accusation that the city attorney's office instructed her to sue me and my company in a small claims court. If her accusation is true, then there is no way Mr. Lundeen can give an unbiased report on Alderman Laura Armstrong. My request is that the city appoint an unbiased party to investigate, produce a report on both Joel Lundeen and Laura Armstrong. As a citizen and a taxpayer of Rapid City, I demand a fair hearing of my complaints and concerns. They are valid. Members of this community must be able to speak freely without fear of retaliation or censorship. There must be an unbiased party appointed for these investigations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dwayne Langenfeld. Did I get your name right, sir?
Yes, sir. My name is Dwayne Langenfeld. I've lived in Rapid City since 2013. I've owned and operated Djibouti Hail Team since that date. I've led teams up to 20 people on my staff. We've repaired over 1,000 vehicles since I've arrived. The income generated has effectively been returned to the area in form of tax revenue, reinvestment into business, supporting other businesses through local advertising and utilizing their services, along with simply living here. Additionally, I own other companies, one currently active here, and I'm launching another shortly. I'll follow up with that in a little bit. My concerns: when I placed a complaint with the city's attorney's office, I expected precedent and city protocol to be followed. Not only was precedent ignored, but our private information was also handed over to the Rapid City Journal, allowing anyone to download said complaints and do whatever they'd want with them. So rather than follow that protocol and handle the complaints according to city precedent, Ms. Armstrong authorized our private information released to the newspaper and escalated the situation even further. This behavior is exactly why I issued the initial complaint. When people that we elect use their public office and go after private citizens, even if it's inadvertent and it causes other actions, we're walking in dangerous territory. And I'll explain even further with that. Effectively, we are doxxed. And that's something people use to eliminate people from talking. You dox them, you put fear in them, you keep them from talking. I have no problem standing up. At this point, if you look at my reputation business-wise, actually I've gone off this. You look at my reputation business-wise, it's clean. I'll do whatever I need to do to make sure my customers are taken care of. But when I have a complaint and it's genuine, and then I'm immediately doxxed, 30 minutes, an hour, it was in the newspaper, that's unacceptable. I have another company coming up because I've got 6 provisional patents to my name. And this product that I'm about to develop, I was going to start here. But once I saw what was going on at the leadership level, I said, And I started another LLC in Wyoming. And I was going to launch it there. And as I really thought about it, I was like, I can't be doing it this way. I need to try to work with the situation. But if this is what continues to happen, how much revenue is lost for the city because we're willing to go after our own constituents and our own businesses? It's not okay.
Bill Clayton.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'm here tonight to speak to you regarding the multiple complaints filed against Ward 5 Councilwoman and Common Council President Laura Armstrong. Your Rapid City Code of Conduct under Section B defines and dictates the procedures for due process when a violation of that code is alleged. First, and I am quoting from the Code of Conduct, any complaint must be made in writing to the Office of the City Attorney. On January 4th, 2021, 91 signed written complaints against Councilwoman Laura Armstrong were filed with the City Attorney per due process of the Code. The process next describes what the City Attorney shall do. He must examine the complaints and review any signed written submissions by the person directly involved. After that examination and review, the complaints may be discussed in executive session. Also, upon completion of his review, the City Attorney's Office shall submit in executive session an unbiased, fact-based investigative report to the Common Council. Instead of following the prescribed procedures under due process, the 91 complaints were immediately scanned and released, unredacted, to the Rapid City Journal. There was not enough time between the filing of the complaints and their release to the press for either the City Attorney or Councilwoman Armstrong to have read them, nor for the City Attorney to have examined and reviewed them and a written report as required under due process of the Code of Conduct. The signed complaints were published on the Internet, including sensitive personal information that the City Attorney and Councilwoman had a legal responsibility to protect under South Dakota codified law. The City Attorney told local media those complaints were released at the behest of Councilwoman Armstrong in order to, and I quote, avoid the appearance of hiding something, unquote. In that Councilwoman Armstrong requested the departure from the required steps of due process and insisted the complaints be made public, the many people who filed those complaints believe that Councilwoman Armstrong has, by her own actions and those of the City Attorney, forfeited any right to request closed-door dealings with those complaints. Any further discussion, action, or hearing pertaining to those complaints must take place in full view of the public and not in executive session. To do otherwise would create the appearance that you are, in fact, hiding something. Thank you.
Jasmine Stengel.
Hello. Okay, so we support loving thy neighbor, having faith and staying positive. We support leaders who lead and working together to get through difficult times. We support that America's diversity is among our greatest strengths. We support love, justice, and humanity. We support rule makers, not rule breakers. And we support local businesses in our community. All things that were said by you, Laura Armstrong. So thank you for echoing that. To be very clear, we don't support people taking lug nuts off of vehicles and look forward to seeing the details of that matter come to light. However, we also don't support is calling people names such as super spreaders. We don't support mocking citizens for exercising their First Amendment right. We don't support using our youth to create more division in our community. We also don't support deeming certain businesses as caring and safe and others not. We don't support implying anyone has a mental illness, all in the name of a political difference on disputed policies. These are in violations of paragraph A.1 and A.2 of your own code of conduct as elected officials. As per this violation, a written complaint of said violation shall be made to City's Attorney's Office. The City Council's and the City Attorney's process is complaint, review, investigate, and report. I know that Mr. Landine stated on a January 11th phone call that he admitted to the council that it was a mistake for them to not redact information before sending the 91 complaints to the Journal, but yet it still happened. The city attorney is subject to the same code of conduct. So if code of conduct isn't being followed and proper protocols to file a complaint, regardless of your political views, isn't being followed, do we now support lawlessness? What faith does it give to our community as a whole that future code of conduct, complaints, and processes laid out will be followed? There is distrust in government no matter what side you look at it right now. We need to restore order and faith that there isn't future violations of due process, not just for us, but as a whole community, a level of accountability for all. How do we expect the community to trust this council moving forward with future divisional issues such as land back and home rule if there is distrust in the process at which this city council operates at this very moment? Lawlessness, division, and hatred have no business being in our community. Uphold the code of conduct, follow due process, protect our First Amendment rights, and sanction those that violate it. As a community, I do not believe this is too much to ask of our elected officials. Thank you for your time and consideration on our legitimate concerns.
Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'm actually here about another matter. Last Friday, it was a newspaper article came out. Again, Jordan Mason here in Rapid City. Last Friday, there was a newspaper article published about the People's Rule and Home Rule topic that has kind of become a topic of the town. And during that interview, Mayor Allender publicly admitted that to read it here, the committee researched home rule for about a year and submitted their recommendation to Allender. It's been pretty well documented that almost $40,000 of taxpayer money has been spent, and I am here on behalf of the People's Rule to publicly request that public information be released, allow a public dialogue, as was promised when this task force was first formed on May 4th of 2020, that the people have an opportunity to be informed about this, I would argue, monumental change to our government and the way we do things, and allow the people to have informed consent in the decision that ultimately this council will decide whether or not they want the people to make. And I think it's only fair, not to mention, frankly, legal, that the taxpayers have paid for this. This is public information, or South Dakota Codified Law 1-27. And so, again, we have made that formal request in writing to your offices and are formally now verbally requesting that information be released within the next week. Thank you. Have a great night.
Okay, and that'll bring an end to the general public comment. And Chuck, I'm going to call on you in a minute when I get to the next section. Now for non-public hearing items, items 2 through 29. And we're going to open public comment on items 2 through 27. So Chuck Henry, you've got 3 items on your list. You can just hit all these if you want to at this time.
Well, I did have something for public comment, but they're leaving. They talk about lawlessness and everything, but they don't wear masks like you said in city buildings. So I don't get where they get that from. Too bad they left. I was going to quote what the First Amendment is, like it did 2 weeks ago. It says nothing about mask mandates or mask, period.
Item 15 was one of your items, Chuck.
Okay, yeah.
Pavement rehabilitation project, Rand Road.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of streets in Rapid City that need to be improved. They just worked on Tower Road, and I was standing by the bus stop over there, and I was looking at Cathedral Drive, and it's really bad right there. And another point was that at St. Pat and Elm Street, they did St. Pat Street, they did Elm Street, but they didn't even touch the middle of the street. It got left the way it was. So.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to comment also? You had item 32 on there as well. You can just take care of that now if you like.
You can tell I'm not prepared tonight like I was. 32.
Tax increment financing district for east of North Street,
Oh, okay.
Vale.
My point is Rapid Transit does not provide regular bus routes like out south to the new Monument Specialty Hospital. Now, if this gets done, there won't be buses out that go out that far. Because as far as the buses go, it's Coolidge, and that only goes to Rushmore Crossing. So people that don't have transportation can't get to those places. Like, I got a doctor clear out on 16, and I can't even get to that place without paying money to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll close the public comment on these items and open up the consent items for the council, items 2 through 27. Would the council like any of these items removed from consent? Okay, Laura Armstrong says item number 7.
Thank you.
And Darla Drew. Any other items? If not, we could have a motion to approve the consent with the exception of 7 and 20.
So moved.
Motion by everyone, including Lehman, and a second by Pat Jones. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is to approve the purchase of a Rosenbauer aerial fire apparatus, that's a fire truck in firefighter language, through Sourcewell in the amount of $999,000. Do you want to?
Thank you. May I direct some questions to Chief Culberson, sir?
Please do.
Thank you. Chief Culberson, thank you for being here. I sent you my questions earlier today. I just want to just discuss this publicly. During the interview process last August, we were talking about how the firefighting department was going more towards the ambulance compared to actual firefighting. How often is this ladder truck actually used for fighting fires? And I know this has been in the queue for about 3 years, and you're now stepping into this, but I just think for transparency reasons, people might have some questions about this, given the hefty price tag.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for the questions. I'll try to answer these the best that I can. How often does it go out just to fires? I can't quite answer that, the ladder trucks. I can tell you aggregate data on how many times that they go on calls. We have 2 trucks in the city right now, one on the east and one on the west. Truck 1, which is downtown, and then truck 3 that's out west. And they do about 1,400 calls last year, give or take. A big thing to remember is that it's just not about fighting fire with these trucks. They do much more. They also respond to rescue calls. Case in point, last year when we had, or 2 years ago when we had a large amount of rain, had a vehicle stuck just north of town in running water, used a ladder truck for rescue.
Oh, great.
So it's not just about fighting fire, it's about rescue also, and that's with those large structures that we've talked about to the southwest. That's a big portion of it. And
Excellent.
getting up to those elevated positions, 4 stories or greater, is where we need that. Those vehicles also carry a large amount of equipment, including not just the ladder that sits on top, but the ladders that are in the back. Many of those cannot fit on any of the other vehicles that we have, and that's why they're built that way. They have ventilation equipment, salvage and overhaul, so there's a lot of things that are transported on just on that truck company. I think it's important to note with that vehicle, it's not just a ladder. It just doesn't do ladders. It also can be utilized much the same way as any one of our other fire engines can be used. So it carries 500 gallons of water and has a 2,000 gallon per minute pump, just like our fire engines do. Those, give or take, maybe a little more water, different size pumps. But you get the idea. It can do the same thing. And that's why we've decided, after a 3-year process, and this started back 3 years ago when they started making this decision, on to put it out to that station at Station 6.
It is in the budget, correct?
It is in the budget, it's coming out of CIP.
Perfect.
Those dollars would have been spent one way or the other. Back 3 years ago is when they started changing how they were going to detail those dollars in order to pay for this ladder truck this year. So not asking for any other expenditures, no other dollars. We made some adjustments in what we were doing in order to purchase that vehicle because we felt we needed it there.
So you're going down the road that I was asking you earlier, housing this, so it will fit in the garage. We won't have to have an extension.
Correct.
To make it fit. We won't have to build a new,
No new extensions, no new, this vehicle is being spec'd to fit in that station. So it will fit, and it will go down those roads. All of our vehicles can travel all of our roads that we have here, including like Carriage Hills. Some of them we spec differently, like this one. It's going to be a little shorter. It's got a 3-fly section or a 4-fly section instead of a 3-fly section. So we're able to compact it down a little bit more so it can get through those areas.
Great.
And fit into that.
And then I know that we are striving for that Class 1 status. I talked with Chief Seals, or ex-Chief Seals, quite extensively.
Yep.
Are there other measures, aside from this expensive equipment, that we can also do in conjunction with getting this ladder truck?
So the Class 1 rating.
Yes.
Really, my main focus right now is to keep us at a 2. We're about 2.5 points from dropping to a 3, and about 8 points away from getting to a 1. So we have some work to do, and that's where we start balancing cost versus benefit. But in answer to your question, yes, there's many things we can do. The way ISO looks at it, it looks at emergency communications. The fire department is 50% of the points, and then water supply. So Public Works has a huge piece in that, and there are 40 of those 105.5 points.
I'm out of time. As always, thank you for the information and the insight. Thank you.
Sure.
Chief, there's some other council members that have questions for you, but first, would you clarify where Station 6 is for everyone?
Station 6 is located on off of South 16 on Promise Road, in behind Stonewalls.
And would you tell people what ISO is?
Insurance Services, okay, I gotta read it.
Sorry, trick question.
Yes. Insurance Services Offices. I got it right at CIP, but, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next, we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, thanks for that explanation. I think it would be helpful for the public. We had a great discussion at our CIP committee meeting. For those of us who don't know, not just what you're talking about ISO ratings, I think it's really important for the citizens to know why that matters to them and their insurance rates on their properties. Could you kind of give a brief overview of that for the taxpayers?
Thanks for the question. I just want to be clear that ISO wasn't the only reason we decided to put the truck there. It was about deployment of the right resources in the right area. ISO is just a portion of that. Right. ISO takes a look at how we put the ability of a fire department to put out the fire and respond to that emergency. And they give it a classification, 1 to 10. And that's how they decide. In some insurance companies utilize that rating to determine your insurance rates. It's always been big on commercial properties. Most commercial carriers utilize ISO or some other variant of that. ISO is just one of the bigger ones. And so do residential insurance providers.
And so I've been down this road before where I've worked in business. It is really important to have a great ISO rating. That includes our equipment, time for response, where our fire hydrants are. There's a lot of factors that go into that. That's not obviously the number one reason we would do anything is for the public safety of our community. The benefit to the community is the fact that when we have a strong ISO rating, it helps keep insurance rates, as you know, with hail claims and things that we have. Anything we can do to help mitigate the increase on that is pretty important. So I think it's good to remind people what those things mean, that the rating's not only used internally, but it actually is something that's a factor in everybody's everyday life.
Right.
So with that, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's so important when something is bordering on $1 million that we do have these discussions, and it really helps everybody understand things. Chief, did I understand that you've waited 3 years for this on the CIP list? Is that what you said earlier?
It's been a 3-year planning process, so it started 3 years ago. We haven't been waiting to do it.
Uh-huh.
There has been some waiting just so we could adjust our expenditures because we needed an engine last year, which then moves forward. So, but it worked out perfectly for this to happen.
I like it when things work out perfectly. You know, the CIP, which is the Community Investment Program monies, that is part of the sales tax. Half goes to quality of life, half goes to community improvements. And this is where the money comes from for these kinds of projects. Many times, we don't have the money that's really needed for all the projects and all the things that are requested. Roads and vehicles like this compete for the same funds. And it's important that we know where this money comes from, why there isn't enough of it, and sometimes some things have to be moved years ahead in that budget. This rating that you're talking about, does that help us with grants as well then?
ISO rating,
Well, I mean, if you get to a 1, I mean, if you're going for a grant, doesn't it look a little bit better on
it
your
does
grant?
look, it does,
Uh-huh.
to a certain degree. That you're doing things a particular way and you have the resources needed to be able to prove that you're an ISA 01.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Okay.
standard.
Okay, well, yeah, we want to be the best because that's what we aspire to.
Paul's has got it,
So, yeah, so thank you for your time, and I yield.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just echo the comments of my colleagues, and I think that we understand as council people that some of our priorities are obviously safety, water, sewer, public infrastructure, and but I do know you need this truck because 2 days ago, I have a gentleman that lives at my house part-time. He's a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran, and his heart started racing at about 180. He's calling me on the phone. I say, just call 911. Get there, and there's 3 young men there in their ambulance service. Just a class act, Chief. They were awesome guys, and they're putting the EKG on my friend. And I said to him, you guys need that hook and ladder truck? Yep, we sure do. I said, okay, I get it. Yeah, take care of that. But I can remember back in the day before the fire department really took over the ambulance service, and some of what we looked at then and where we're at today. And I just got to say, it's come a long way, and appreciate all the hard work and effort. And I know this is a lot of money. I think some of my colleagues alluded to the fact that it had been in the works for a while, been planned out, and so it's appropriate to do this. So thank you. And thank you, Chief. And if you see those 3 young men, I think they'll remember who I was because they were like, what's that all about?
I might have heard from one of them after they came back and went and realized who he just
I was just so
talked to.
impressed to see 3 young guys, and I had a conversation with my colleague earlier that they were so passionate about what they were doing. It was just really, really cool. So
Yes, they
I
are.
appreciate that.
Got great staff.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I just want to follow up on a few comments that you and I had after the CIP meeting Friday, and I do appreciate your input then and tonight. One of the things that we talked about was the NFPA and what they require in terms of turnover for your equipment, and then some of the current events that happen not only here and in Pierre that kind of illustrate the need for this equipment.
Right. NFPA is a standard for the national or for fire departments across the country. It's National Fire Protection Administration. So they put out the standard of how you deploy your resources. They've got different types of standards, but the one we're talking about is 1710, and discussions on how you respond to certain types of calls. It's not the lengthiest document, but it's not real great to read through. It's rather boring and et cetera. But like you put it, the recent events like in Pier with the Edgewood Apartments where they had a fire going through it, pushed by 50-mile-an-hour winds, able to set up that big master stream off of an elevated stick and be able to dump the water right into those apartment complexes, keeping it from running to the next ones. That keeps firefighters away from having to be that close to that structure. They're still surrounding it, but you're able to get water closer to where it needs to be. So, and we have some of those issues, and we potentially can. We had an attic get struck by lightning several years ago. I can't remember how many years ago. I remember being on the call, but where it struck one of the apartments up off of South 16 and burned off the roof. And we kept most of it at bay because we had the elevated stream that we were able to put water on the fire. So, and not put any firefighters up in that attic space, which they couldn't get to anyway. So,
Thank you, Chief. I yield.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on that fire he's referring to because I had the privilege of driving. I was cresting the hill off of Catron there just in time to see the lightning strike that roof. And so I pulled down and just in time to see people running, and I thought, well, I better not go in there because there's going to be emergency vehicles. So I pulled off and watched response time as the fire department showed up quickly. But then the ladder truck, which had to come from across town, was somewhat delayed, and it was amazing to watch how quickly that fire spread through the attic of that, is it a 3 or 4 story thing, and we're getting more and more of those 4-story ones around town. Luckily, nobody was killed in that. I think we lost a couple fluffies and, furry pets. But the way that spread to that complex, talking to people afterwards, I mean, we're very lucky that maybe somebody wasn't trapped. So I think having this truck in closer proximity to some of these larger units is a really smart move. And to answer the question, how often do we need a ladder truck? Hopefully the answer is never, because that means everybody's safe. So I think this is a great purchase for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, second by, who was it? Jason Solomon. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item number 7. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Item 20, approve the preliminary recommendations of fiscal year 20. Item 20, approve the preliminary recommendations of fiscal year 20 CDBG funds. We'll go to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. And I see Michelle is up at the podium again. We don't need to rehash a lot of this. I just wanted to go over some of it. The mayor, I think I made it clear to him that I was feeling that some of this this process should be possibly reviewed, and if you could kind of get me in on some of the meetings that might be coming up. I saw the preliminary recommendations, and like I said to you, Michelle, I'm not going to make a big deal about this, but it seems like we're going back to the same organizations over and over. Not that they're not worthy. It's just that I think we need to let more organizations know that this is available, because there's very few city resources that are available to nonprofits. And the list is Middle-Luzahan Senior Center, Wellspring, Black Hills Works, Meals on Wheels, YMCA, and the YFS. As a fundraiser myself, I'm not making a plea for my organization, believe me. I think that a lot of these also have their own fundraising mechanisms or personnel in place that leaves some of the other groups at a disadvantage when it comes to finding out about these opportunities for them. So can you tell me a little bit about your process when you start looking, or how you start advertising for people to come forward and ask for your funds, or how you let people know about it, then what kind of a time frame that is? So I'd just like to know a little bit more.
I appreciate the question, Alderwoman Drew. That's a wonderful point. What we do when we receive our annual allocation, and the process we employed with the CV funds through the CARES Act, is to issue public notices, both through the Rapid City Journal and the Native Sun News. And our broadcast list is really probably the most impactful resource we have. We email that directly to over 300 individuals, and we can always grow that list. But of course, if any agency is interested in the funding, we do one-on-one meetings. They can always call our office, and we can tell them more about that program, and that's certainly welcome as well.
When approximately does that happen during the year?
Typically, that will happen in September, so they'll have at least 4 weeks to apply. Applications would be due on October 1.
Okay. And I can just find all this information on our website, correct?
That's correct.
You know, I think a lot of people are intimidated to come forward with these processes. You know, the city seems kind of like a big thing to be asking money from. And so I don't know how you get to them more personally. I think the Native Sun News is an excellent way to get to some of the groups that have Indigenous people's interests at heart. And I know of some of them right now that, gee, they said, well, if we only knew about how to get to that money, you know, we would have applied too. So that was my concern. That's why I brought this up to you guys, because I was personally involved with some groups that said, how do we access this? And so I will let them know their next chance will probably be in September, and try and work with you guys to get it out to more of the smaller groups that just don't even know how to make that first step, and get them involved with you guys. I know it's, you know, I'm sure the Black Hills Works and all these other groups can write a great grant. You know, they look really very much in need, and I'm sure they are. But I think they have other resources, and since our resources are so small here at the city, I'd just like to have it seem like it's a little bit more open. And I'm not saying transparent, because that word is overused. I'd just like to have it seem like more people can approach us for this kind of funding. And that's all, Michelle. I don't mean to make it seem like you guys didn't do your work this year. I'm sure you did. So like I said, I'm backing off, but next year I'll really want to know when this starts, okay?
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion for item 20. Okay, we have a motion by Lehman and a second by Jones, and we'll go to Bill Evans.
I just wanted to add on to what Ms. Drew just said. You know, most of these are reasonably well-funded organizations, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's amazing what some of these smaller groups can do with $5,000. And if we enable some of these groups that may not function, or they function without a budget at all now, out of pocket because they're doing volunteer work, I think we can just enable them to do their mission. And I think these little grants that you're talking about is a great idea. So thanks for bringing that up. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 20. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And that takes us through the consent items. Now into non-consent items. 28 and 29, there are no speaker requests on those items. So we'll start with item 28. A request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Kakert. Does anyone know how to pronounce this name? Kakert Construction? That sounds right, okay. Kakert Construction LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Lot 18A and Lot 18B of Block 1 of Gemstone Subdivision, generally described as being located at 524 and 526 Topaz Lane, and the recommendation is to approve stipulations, and we'll go to Ron Weifenbach.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be abstaining from this particular one.
Okay, thank you. Darla Drew.
Is Ken here tonight, or someone who could answer a couple of questions on this?
Ken Young is here.
Yeah. Ken Young is here. Come on over. Quick questions, Tom, or Ken, sorry. These are townhomes? Is this what it's going to be, just two?
Yes. So that neighborhood is completely developed. This was just one vacant lot that was reserved for development, and they could have put a single-family home in there or do the same thing as the adjacent properties on either side, which is townhomes.
Now, when I was looking through the public improvements, I didn't see sidewalks required. Are they required for this?
They are, and I believe they're already installed because you've got full development on both sides.
That's why I didn't see it. Okay, thank you, I yield.
Okay, item 28, I believe we're without a motion. Motion by Nordstrom to approve the stipulations and a second by Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 29, a request by D.C. Scott Company Land Surveyors for Lauren and Deborah Lippert for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Tract A and Tract B of Lippert Addition, generally described as being located at 14830 Longview Road, and we have a similar recommendation to approve with stipulations. Darla Drew moves to approve with stipulations. Okay, and Laura Armstrong is the second. So with a motion and second, all in favor of item 29, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And on now to public hearing items 30 through 32, and I'm going to call on Kyle Trelor on item 32.
Got a new keyboard up here. This is nice.
You're
All
young
right,
enough to figure that out, I think.
Well, I'd like to start by thanking everybody for the time tonight to discuss this. A lot of you guys have already taken time to kind of run through the details here. I'd like to start by just, we've had a lot of conversations back and forth, a lot of emails back and forth, just being very clear on what we're requesting, what we'd like to request for action tonight. And that is that the TIF project plan be approved at tonight's meeting with the revision that it includes the paving, sanitary sewer, street lights along East Anamosa and Mickelson Drive, and that the project plan include the booster station. Both of these infrastructure items are necessary to make this project plan move forward, and per the conversations, we can make this infrastructure happen within the dollar amounts that we have in this project plan, and we're excited to do that. We also had discussed some additional stipulations to go along with that, that they be, and I'll just read these right into, that the developer donate public right-of-ways required as part of any subdivision improvement requirement for North Valley Drive, Mickelson Drive, and East Anamosa Street, and other public right-of-ways within the TID boundary. That the developer shall dedicate the drainage easements for the detention ponds that have been discussed, and that the developer shall be paid for the drainage ponds and the drainage easements in an amount not to exceed that amount stated in the TIF or the appraised value of the easements, whichever is less. That the land value shall be determined by a city-hired appraiser licensed in the state of South Dakota, and that the developer will pay for the cost of the appraisal, and that they shall be recovered from the same costs in the TIF. I also want to acknowledge that we received an email here late this afternoon requesting to move this back for 2 more weeks, and that it be further discussed in the upcoming working group section, and that a couple of our neighbors had expressed that they may be interested in developing or doing a multi-developer project plan. I'd like to just kind of touch on that for a few minutes here, and note that that's not something that we can make work within the project plan that we've identified. Where this has happened before, specifically the one that was referenced, TID 65, the 2 developers weren't able to move forward until one of them bought the other one out, because there's decisions that need to be made into determining what gets built, when it gets built, and we have to have a certain amount of control so that we can determine and we can make the development move forward and the construction move forward in a manner that allows us to develop to really make this TIF work and to function. We've prepared a lot of information and we've went through a lot of this, and I'd be more than happy to go over any more of that as needed. But I just wanted to be kind of very clear and kind of summarize the items that we've talked about to this date, and request that this item with the stipulations that I outlined before be approved tonight, so that we can move forward with this project that does so many great things for this community, connecting Anamosa Street, installing these water mains, installing this booster station, and moving this whole area and doing this infill project. It's just got the momentum moving for it right now, and that we're more than willing to finance and move it forward. So I thank you guys for your time and your consideration tonight, and would be available for any more questions that may come about. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. When we take up this item, I'm sure some of the members will want to speak to you at that time. So that'll close our public comment period on these items, and now we'll have consent public hearing items, items 30 and 31. Would the council like to take these separately or make one motion to approve 30 and 31? Okay, motion by Darla Drew to approve consent items and a second by Lance Lehman for 30 and 31. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 32, approve resolution 2020-090 to approve a project plan for property generally described as being located east of North Street, north of South Dakota Highway 44, west of Elk Vale, and south of Eglin Street. And this is a continued item from January 4th. And I'd like to start this item out by calling on Patsy Horton. She's got some updated information.
I just want to thank you for allowing me to provide some additional stipulations in conjunction with this proposal. And I also want to thank our developer for identifying that, you know, this is a huge financial responsibility for him. And so based on all of those comments that we received on that $28 million proposal that he submitted, I reached out and contacted property owners within the east side of this particular boundary and asked if they would be willing to upfront the cost, similar to what our current developer is doing, so that they can move forward with phase 2 at the same time our current developer is moving forward with phase 1. That does a couple different things. That identifies a lower risk for developer 1, and I'm calling Hanny developer 1, and having the same opportunity for developer 2 to move forward with construction at the same time developer 1 does. So I'm just going to go through a couple slides real quick for you.
Kyle broke the computer, I think, is what he was saying from back there.
I've got another option. Plan 2.
Going old school with the overhead here.
You betcha. So this is, I borrowed Dream Design's presentation and shortened it up some.
We dim the lights just a little bit. There we go.
So here we go. So on the left side of the screen is what I propose as developer 1. And the right side of the screen is developer 2. So developer 1 moves forward with all of the improvements identified in phase 1, and developer 2 moves forward with all of the improvements identified in phase 2. So I've also taken Dream Design's project costs and ran them through our amortization schedule based on the timing of this proposal. And as you'll see, I included the booster station on both sides of the screen for both phase 1 and phase 2, because from staff's perspective, we still need that feasibility study, because that is going to determine if that booster station is feasible at the proposed location on the west side of the district or somewhere on the east side of the district where it's closer to the existing reservoir. But either way, for a regional booster station to be constructed by a developer, our existing infrastructure criteria manual states that that developer, if they want to move forward, has to present to Public Works a feasibility study that determines that it's going to function as our system needs it to. So still, what I proposed is half of the cost for this study, and that's about $15,000 to $20,000, be provided by both developers so that we can move forward immediately with that study to get the ball rolling sooner rather than later on the booster station. That will identify for us if it's actually going to be a feasible regional facility or not. So that's included in both costs. If for some reason it is determined to be located in Phase 1, then the costs that are identified in Phase 2 will not be used for any other public improvement. So then what that does, it reduces Developer 1's financial responsibility from the $28 million that he had identified in his proposal to only $18 million. It also increases Phase 2, which is Developer 2 financial commitment, to $8.2 million to get the construction done on the Phase 2, which is east of North Valley Drive. And generally, I'm going to put this phasing back up. All of these project costs and how they were split between these two developers was actually done by the developer with the original proposal. What you can see generally in right here, where the pin is, that's really the difference in, the Phase 1 with his proposal and the Phase 2 with the future proposal. What I've done is identify the easternmost boundary of the Diamond Ridge subdivision, and everything east of that will be Phase 2 for Developer 2. This is the developer that has indicated that he would fund the construction costs with the same opportunities for the entire street construction cost, as well as some grading, similar to what we have on the left side of the screen, but then they can move forward with their proposal and their development similar to what Phase 1 is. The other thing that I've included in the stipulations that I provided to you is a proposal for a timeline. If for some reason Developer 2 does not move forward before Developer 1's anticipated construction date for Phase 2 of 2024-2025, then Developer 1 can move forward with Phase 2 as they had planned. This gives Developer 2 the opportunity to move forward immediately before Hanny can come through with his proposal for 2024 construction schedule. So what that does, it gets that road constructed sooner, it gets the water connections done sooner, and it identifies where that booster station is going to be located. But we do recommend approval tonight with the revised stipulations that you have before you, and I will quickly go through them. So, sorry. So I scratched out, oh look, we magically appeared. We rebooted. So here is the proposal from the developer. So I changed it from just the developer to specifically say Developer 1. Does the same thing with the rights-of-way and any other property adjacent to Anamosa Street. They still dedicate the drainage easements. They still are paid for the pond drainage, but I changed the language to make sure that the purchase of that property met the public purchase requirements. We want to make sure that we're following all the rules that we're supposed to. And then Developer 1 provides half of that cost of the feasibility study so that we can meet the intent of our existing infrastructure design criteria manual. And so then also they get reimbursement for the design and construction of all of the Phase 1 capital projects, which is consistent with their proposal as well. And then anything generated, any increment generated within the Phase 1 boundary goes to the Developer 1 to pay for their costs. And I apologize for the lateness of this, but this is something that, we tried to work on to address their concerns about the additional costs that they're going to occur and the additional risk that they may incur. So here is Developer 2, and it's generally the same thing as Developer 1, where they pay half of the feasibility study. They're responsible for the design and construction of all of Phase 2 capital projects. They also, use the increments generated within that Phase 2 boundary to be allowed for Developer 2 costs. And here's the catcher, and I don't have the timeline down, but generally it will be 2024, which is what the original development for Phase 2 would start, is that if either developer is not under contract for the construction of those improvements within their own boundary, then the other developer may proceed with those improvements that are not under construction yet. So that gives both the developers the opportunity to finish a piece that may or may not be completed, so that we can actually get those infrastructure connections made, and the system will then work more efficiently. But with that, we do recommend approval tonight with these amended stipulations. I know that there's some, we can finalize, some of the details with the developer's agreement, but generally the project plan is the same, only now we're adding a separate entity that, will not have to work with Hanny unless number 10 comes to fruition. But this way, we're providing the same financial opportunities for the developer on the east, for all three developers on the east side of this boundary. Let me get to the first screen. So here again is the split. The developer one has, the majority of the property. So the split is right there, just on the east side of Diamond Ridge. Developer 2 property does, Developer 2 boundary does have some property in
Mr. Mayor,
Phase 2 of.
I need a point of clarification because I'm getting lost now on this. Are we talking about that red line?
The red line is the boundary.
So to the right side, looking at it from this side, or to the west, all those houses and stuff, that's a plan there?
So what you see is Dream Design's master plan.
So that right there is Dream Design's plan right now. What's developer 2? I mean, I'm getting.
Boulder Falls LLC. He owns the property on the east side that doesn't have anything showing.
East side of the red line, or the east side of that plan that's up there now?
East side of those houses that are shown up above. They have enough property for about 500 homes, or they also have commercial zoning in that district, and then they have property on the south side as well. I've talked to the other developer immediately adjacent to Anamosa Street on the south side, just east of Diamond Ridge subdivision. He's also willing to participate in those costs and join in with Boulder Falls developer so that they can both get that entire construction done. However, if it's a concern of Hanny's to include that, those homes within that boundary, from his timeline, he didn't indicate that Anamosa Street was going to be constructed until 2024. So if those homes are constructed before then, we can write a provision that those homes the increment from those homes can be included in developer 1 revenue generation. If that's what the deal breaker is going to be, we can exclude that, we can adjust that boundary for developer 1 and developer 2 revenue generation. But he did not anticipate constructing that regional detention pond until 2024, 2025 either, that you see on the right side of that red line.
Okay, let's see if Ken Young can add anything to this before we turn over to the council.
Okay, I wanted to thank Patsy for her creativity and her great efforts. I know she's kind of stayed extra hours to try to work on this proposal. It's a lot of great work, and so I thank her for that. I think a lot of new stuff has been thrown both at the original applicant and also to the council all at once here. And if there is some confusion still or some uncertainty as to how this all might work, I would recommend that we do continue this again so that all parties can be more educated and more onto the same page as to what we're doing. I think in Patsy's mind, she's got it down clear and it's going to work. And I think that could be conveyed to others if we're not ready for that here tonight. But I do recommend, unless you're comfortable moving forward, that we do continue it.
Okay, let's go to Darla Drew.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Phase 1 with the stipulations that were designated by Dream Design at our last meeting. I'd like to get a second for discussion.
So can I clarify the
Yep.
motion then? Not what we just heard, but the original motion? Or the
Original motion.
original proposal?
With the stipulations that were added by Dream Design. The ones that we got 2 weeks ago. Okay, hold on, let's get Kyle up here if I could, please. I want to make sure that I'm getting that right too. So Kyle, everything kind of changed for you today, and with your stipulations, the motion that I'm trying to make is, am I making a motion that would get your project moving forward?
What we're looking for is a motion that would approve this project plan with the addition of the paving, the sanitary sewer, the street lighting on East Anamosa and Mickelson Streets, the inclusion of the booster station with the stipulations that I read today that included the donation by us or the entities that we have partnership in, that we would donate our right-of-ways to this project for the constructions of these streets, that we would dedicate the drainage easements for the regional ponds, and that the regional ponds would be evaluated by an appraiser that was hired and picked by the city of Rapid City, and that money could be included inside of that project plan, and that the cost of that appraisal would be recovered through the TIF. Those are the stipulations that we need to make this happen.
Is that what you meant, John Roberts? Okay, then that's what I mean. Okay, thank you. I have a couple more questions for Kyle.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
The motion then is to accept the original plan.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
With the stipulations,
With the original stipulations. Does everyone know what we're talking about?
as read by Kyle.
Do you know what we're talking about, Kyle?
As read by me. I think that
Yes.
that
Okay.
gets it taken care of.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, and so we
Thank
have a
you for helping
motion
me with
there,
that.
and there was a second
My bell keeps going. Okay. Okay.
by Lance Lehman.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so now I just have some questions for you, Kyle. So you're going along with your project, and then you hear about this. You're calling these guys. I understand you called them a few times to see where you were on this, and then today, there's no indication that something like this is on the way, and then you hear from them this afternoon about when.
I think we got an email, it was right around 2:30, 3 o'clock this afternoon, that there was an ask for a continuance and that there was other developers or neighbors that wanted to be involved with this project. And I can tell you quite simply that, we've been involved with a lot of different TIFs. We've done a lot of planning on a lot of different TIFs where you have multiple developers. It's not an issue with the funding. So it's not the funding for the Phase 1 and the Phase 2 that's the issue. It's the development that needs to occur within those two boundaries to repay that increment and repay these different infrastructure projects. So what's really most important is that, to make all of this improvement work, to build Anamosa Street, to build these booster stations, we need to provide the housing, we need to provide the multifamily units. They have to be constructed and built within a certain time frame within these boundaries so that we can generate that increment that will help pay back these. If you have projects coming in at different times, then the timing of the paybacks, it gets confusing, and you lose control over the payback of either project.
Kyle, so you suddenly got a project partner you didn't want, didn't ask for. And we say, okay, I heard today. Well, what if we wait 2 weeks? What difference does that make? Well, I think it makes a lot of difference if it's coming out of your pocket. How much is coming out of your pocket?
Well, every day that this is delayed, I mean, the materials go up, the project costs go up. Everything continues to go up on a cost basis. But the true honest answer is that if we come back in 2 weeks, the answer is still going to be the same. We can't have another developer involved with this TIF for us to move forward with it. It's got to be what we've laid out is what we can get done, and that we know will get done. We'll make that development happen to do these projects. That added developer, whether we come back in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change the fact that it doesn't work and that it won't work within this. Where we had the other issue on the TID 65 with the multiple developers, the only way that project moved forward was when one of the developers bought the other one out for just these reasons.
Yes, yes. So thank you for that. I can support this. Of course, I tried to make a motion that was very unable to have anybody understand it, but I think I got it through here. I want to support this. I want to do it now. I don't want to support the changes, and we can do those changes later. I just want to get this going and say yes to it tonight.
Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to clarify this motion. So in the 2 weeks ago, and can I ask Ken this question? 2 weeks ago, or Patsy, it doesn't matter, I guess. Patsy may be able. 2 weeks ago in the project plan, because I don't have it right in front of me, I've got something else in front of me. Was the booster station in there? Was the things that they're asking for now in that project plan, other than these other stipulations that they're asking for?
The booster station is always going to require that feasibility study. The applicant has indicated that they don't need that because this is the location that needs to occur for this developer. That doesn't mean that that's a regional facility. One of the comments that we made 2 weeks ago.
That's fine, Patsy. You can't take all my time. I got 5 minutes.
Sorry.
Let me, Kyle, can you step up? I want to talk to you real quick. So, Kyle, what was in that project plan 2 weeks ago that, because I want to clarify this. I don't want to have a project plan come forward that's not what you are looking for and what's going to make this project work.
Sure. What we need to make this project work is the items that you have in front of you on the screen right now. We've got the dual water mains. We've got the boosters.
But what is in the project plan 2 weeks ago? What is not in the project plan 2 weeks ago?
What you have now in the project plan is the booster station and the construction, the full construction of Anamosa and Mickelson Streets, which includes street lighting, the pavement, the sewer, and all of the associated items that would go with the street construction.
Is there anything you need added in other than your stipulations?
No.
Okay. So we are clear on that motion, and I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that motion. Now I want to go forward to something else that I'm very upset with. Since when did staff start negotiating TIFs? I mean, that's what Patsy's doing. She's going out talking to developers to negotiate a TIF for someone else. Can you answer that question, Patsy?
Staff has always worked with the developers.
With, but not for. You're out going and talking to people that aren't coming forward with a TIF. You're trying to push the TIF itself, which is great. If the city wants to do the TIF, I think that's absolutely fantastic. But trying to put two developers together is almost impossible to do.
They're not together, John. They're not together.
Then why don't they do their own TIF after the fact?
Okay,
Patsy?
then, if that's what you'd like to do, then let's split this boundary.
We're not
so
going to. Hopefully, we're going to go forward with this one tonight, and you can do the other one in the future.
So
this is my time, not your time. So anyway, I'm very upset, Patsy. I'm very, very upset about this. I'm very upset that you waited until 3 hours before the meeting to bring this forward. You know, I am so tired of staff trying to run business in Rapid City. Let's let business run business in Rapid City. Anyway, I'm done for now. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. My concerns are just going to be general concerns that have kind of percolated up already, but when the Dream Design project is being referred to as the Handy project or sometimes Dream Design, but the other developer is only being called the developer. I'm uncomfortable that those names aren't being provided to us and shared as often as the other one. There's Handy or Dream Design that we should respectfully refer to them as, and then Project 2 or Phase 2 or Developer 2. Who are these people and why haven't they come forward before this time? There's been plenty of opportunity for other people who want to take part in this to come forward. And I don't like 11th hour decisions like this that are this big. A $25 million TIF that's going to develop a tremendous part of our town in the exact spot that needs to be developed. A great amount of work has gone into it by you, Patsy, and you've done tremendous work. And your presentation's fantastic. But talk about feeling uncomfortable. It's almost like we're going to a dance, and Dream Design is taking their date, this project, to the dance, and here comes the partner, Phase 2, Developer 2, and wants to dance with the project. That never works out. And so I totally support Alderwoman Drew's motion. I'm disappointed. I feel like we're almost disrespecting Dream Design in doing this type of thing. And if the other people, the other parties want to develop and do something out in that area, come on, let's go, let's do it. That would be wonderful. We need this kind of stuff, but not at the demise or the potential demise of the project from Dream Design. What if the two developers don't want to partner together? What if they don't want to move forward? What if partner 2, his project has to get done so partner 1 can move forward and he doesn't feel like it? There's no rules that says they have to work hand in hand and move forward. There's more potential for disaster than there is success here. So I very much support the motion and will certainly be emphatically voting for it. I'm done. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Well, I thought I knew what was going on here after studying it all afternoon, but now I'm confused. And I'll ask Patsy this. With Ms. Drew's motion, that red line split, Phase 1, Phase 2, and dividing the cost of that pump station does not happen, correct?
No, that's not true.
That's not true. So the Phase 1, Phase 2 happens, and the split happens, but I'm curious as to whether if everything we're voting on is going to make the developer happy, because when I'm looking at, I don't remember seeing that red line 2 weeks ago. And if we're voting on something that happened 2 weeks ago, I don't think that split is there. So I'm just a little confused about it all.
So the split is only the cost of the feasibility study. That's a $15,000 to $20,000 estimated study cost. So both of those proposed developers, in Developer 1 and Developer 2, share the cost of that feasibility study. Because at this point, we don't know if the booster station located at East Philadelphia and East Anamosa Street is actually a regional facility. That's what that study is going to address, whether it's a regional facility and whether that booster station needs to go at that current location that he's proposed at Philadelphia and Anamosa, or does it need to stay where the proposed location is right now? That is why we need that feasibility study. That's the only cost that is split in half.
Who will do this feasibility study, which firm, and do we not have experts on our own staff that could show up and maybe answer some of these questions so they don't have to do the feasibility study again? I know it's changed from the plans when it was originally done, because there was a previous one done, correct?
The current master plan for this particular booster station identifies that location east of Elkville.
Is there nobody in our engineering staff that can maybe provide this expertise and solve the problem?
Dale Tech.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll answer that. The short answer is no, Mr. Evans.
We do our utility system master plans, and we generally identify sizes, types, locations of infrastructure that is needed. However, when it is time to actually site and consider building a facility, we hire a design professional to fully evaluate that. That's what we've done with all of our booster stations. I believe the stipulations that you're voting on, or that the motion is for right now, negates any type of feasibility study. In my opinion, the worst thing we can do is to site infrastructure without properly identifying its appropriate location and sizing. So I think that's a mistake, not including a feasibility study in any of this.
Is there any kind of ballpark idea exactly what the potential problem might be if we do something without this study and we build it wrong? What's the issue?
The issue is you have a multi-million-dollar facility that's worthless. That's the issue. Causes issues with other infrastructure or other customers.
Okay, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to give all of you an opportunity to share. First, a disclosure. Since the last council meeting, I did have a discussion with Dream Design about the project, so I just want to make sure that that's disclosed. Next, Patsy and or Director Young. I want to give you an opportunity to respond. John asked some questions about us initiating conversations with other developers, and I'm not sure you fully got an opportunity to share. I would like to hear a response briefly, because I have to get a question to Kyle as well.
The reason I contacted those other developers is because of Hanny's repeated comments that this is a huge infrastructure commitment, a financial commitment for him. I wanted to come up with some solutions to address those issues. And yes, you're right, I did contact them because of Hanny's comments about those concerns. And the other thing I want to clarify real quick, the existing project plan from 2 weeks ago does not include the street infrastructure. It does not include the sewer costs, the drainage costs for that street section. It does not include the curb and gutter. It does not include the street lighting facility. So what you're doing with this one particular action is providing the funding for the entire street section when they agreed with staff to move forward with this proposal to do extra grading to cover those costs because we knew we needed those water mains in. That's how we're going to make this system function, is to get those water mains all the way over to Elkville. The other concern is that, without phase 2, we can't make that regional system work.
Okay. And Kyle, as you come up, there is a concern. I do want to share. I think the lack of using a turn signal on this until the last minute, I think, is the frustrating part. And I think communication really does matter. It's a problem here in City Hall. We know that. I'm sure we are not, myself included, perfect at this, but you can see the communication issues and the culture that surrounds it and is allowed to have it is creating problems. And so that's a challenge of leadership, first and foremost, and I think it's a challenge for all of us, including our department heads, including us as council, as well as those we work with. Kyle, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to, the city has indicated to us that there's a need for a feasibility study for this booster station. I'm not sure how long the study takes, but I did want to give you an opportunity to respond to, do you think it's unreasonable for us to pursue that prior to moving forward?
I've got, and I'm going to see if I can't switch this document camera on here. Sure. So as far as the booster station goes, the reason that we have been adamant and that we would like that included with this TIF is that we need that booster station to continue the development within this TIF. This goes right back to the funding of that increment. The booster station is needed for us to continue to develop. Now, we've went back and we've looked at other booster stations and specifically the one that feeds the North Rapid, the existing North Rapid booster station. We've looked at that infrastructure, we've looked at those elevations. There's even previous studies that were provided by the city that show that this area that we're developing is an appropriate area. But the distances and the elevations match up with the other booster stations in the North Rapid area. And so what we're saying is that this is a good spot for that booster station. But more importantly, in order to make this whole development work, to get this development growth, we need that booster station built in this area to build these homes that'll basically finance this increment. So we're saying that you can do it on this property with what we have, with the 16-inch, and that information will be provided to the city. It'll all be coming through, engineering documents as this stuff is all approved. But there's similar items already. This has already been number one identified in studies before the one that Patsy's referenced as a good area for this infrastructure. But then also it's similar to the other booster stations that pump into the other tanks at this level too. So we know that we can make it work, and most importantly, it's needed to make this TIF work and to develop this area out and get this infrastructure built for the connection of this major arterial through this area.
Okay. I can't see how much time I have. I do think a question for Dale, if I don't have time, will be to respond to if we have booster stations doing similar activity elsewhere, that we already kind of have that set up, but I can't, can somebody? 4 minutes? Okay.
On October 23rd of this past year, Public Works identified to Kyle and Hanny the need for a feasibility study. They just don't want to do one. What Kyle showed up here is not a study. That is a guess. That is not any sort of engineering analysis. There is great risk at siting a booster station without doing the appropriate engineering for it.
How long does that take, feasibility study?
It depends. It could take 5-6 weeks.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot. The booster stations aren't going to be built anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a couple of years, I think, is identified in the plan as far as when the construction of the booster
Theoretically
stations.
could approve it with the study, and if their study says it won't work there, you could
absolutely
continue it on. Okay. I know I'm out of time, so I'll yield.
Okay. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Apparently, I can see both sides of this issue, and very clearly. And there's a lot of confusion going on because of the diminished communications. And I should also disclose that Dream Design had a long consultation with me as well. So I got a lot of their information, and then the previous slide we just got to see is the booster station that equivalent that what Dream Design is looking for. So for me, I'm coming down to the point of trying to understand what this booster station is. And Mr. Tech, maybe you can help me out a little bit further on getting a little bit more involved in this. But as far as the booster station, we've done 2 studies. And I don't mean to be critical or anything. I'm just collecting information at this point. We've done 2 studies up in this area, and now we're asking for a 3rd one. Again, that's it's not meant to be critical or anything. It's just clarification.
If I could, there have been no detailed studies as far as a booster station that will be sited in a particular location. There have been general master planning level studies done as far as the water system out in this area. The necessity for a booster station is the elevation of the development. Our low-level system cannot supply water to that elevation, therefore water at a higher pressure boosted needs to be provided. We have the North Rapid Zone. This is at the very edge of the North Rapid Zone, so there's only so much water in it. So a booster station is going to be necessary, and ultimately additional storage to be able to provide water to this development.
Okay, thank you. So I'm coming down to this decision where I'm going to have to make a decision on which way to go on this. And I feel like the taxpayers are going to be the one that's going to be taking a risk in this as well. So who is going to be taking the bigger risk? Is it the taxpayers? Is it the developer? Is it the city that's taking the bigger risk? I don't have a good answer for that. And then with all of this discussion that we're having on this booster station. So if I can ask Kyle a real quick question again, just to understand our concern, at least my concern, is that on this feasibility study for that booster station. I understand what you showed to me a few days ago about that booster station going up north and another booster station that you have in mind, but tell me why it won't work for you folks to have this feasibility study.
We're not against doing a feasibility study, and we're going to do all of the engineering reports that are necessary to show that the booster station can and will function. What it boils down to is that, like Dale is saying, we need that high pressure water to continue the development. We know that this area and this site is a location that could be used to provide this regional water booster station as well. Whether we build the booster station as a regional booster station that can do both the function of serving this development and providing the water over to the high-level tank, that's what we could do as far as the feasibility study goes. But it doesn't necessarily change the fact that for us to make this project plan work and to move forward with this, that we need that booster station to provide this high-level water to continue the growth in this area. So if we're looking for a compromise or something along that lines, we could simply, we need the booster station. So I need the booster station included in the project plan. If we do a feasibility study and it shows that this could be used as a regional study or as a regional booster station, then we can build it as a regional booster station under the TIF. If it's shown that it doesn't function as a regional station, and that you want to build another second booster station somewhere else along Elkvale, then that can be done, but it doesn't change the fact that I still need that booster station included in this TIF to make the development work. So if we're looking for that solution or something along those lines, if we want to see that feasibility study to show that this is an appropriate location for a regional study, we can definitely do that, and we could even add that in as part of the stipulations. But it doesn't change the fact that I still am requesting a booster station to serve this area because we need that to continue the growth that will fund this TIF and fund the roads and fund the streets to make this project happen.
Thank you, Kyle.
Is that clear?
I hope somebody makes that motion to make that clear on that. And then this is addressed to Patsy and the staff. Thank you for what you do. I see the problems that you run across, but I want to say thank you for what you do. I know you're getting criticized for coming in at the 11th hour and so on, but you're still working on coming up with solutions, and I appreciate that. So, and I'm out of time, but I see Mr. Young wants to make a comment, and I can yield if you desire, there, Mayor.
In a little lax on the time because of the complication of it. So if you want to ask someone a question, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Young, could you help us clarify, and then if that booster station comes up in your conversation, could you clarify that as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Well, first, it's unfortunate that there is an appearance that staff is not working responsibly within the time frame here, or that we have not communicated well. That couldn't be further from the truth. There's a long communication trail with the developer on this proposal, and the stipulation for a booster station study has been there from the beginning, from staff's comments. We've come to the point now where push comes to shove, and we've determined that with engineering's help that this is a necessary study. We need to have this. And so Since that was not a part of the most recent proposal from the developer, we decided maybe there's some other alternatives that we can look at to make this work. We are very excited and wanting to see this project move forward, but at the same time it needs to go forward responsibly so that we're not doing something wrong that could end up costing the taxpayers a lot more money in the long run. So that has been our approach from the staff.
All right, answer your question. Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by making a motion to approve these with stipulations and maybe to include the feasibility study, if that is a compromise that we're willing to do. Okay, thank you.
Like a substitute motion to add the feasibility study into the motion.
Just observing just what has been going on, just the confusion, the frustration, the disrespect, that's not a pretty look for us. And I'm confused. I think our taxpayers are going to be confused. And I like that Mr. Treelor had brought up the fact that we would like to find some sort of compromise. And this is my feeble attempt to do so. Mr. Solomon and Mr. Nordstrom, you said you met with Dream Design. Who else met with Dream Design in the last 2 weeks? Everybody? Mr. Weifenbach? You did too? Oh, I was the only one. So I heard that Mr. Shaffey was meeting with people, and then I reached out to say, well, what's going on? He called me this evening at 5 o'clock and left a message. So I agree, there's a lack of communication, and we should be able, when we walk out of here, we should be able to say to our constituents, this happened. And I'm still a little leery on what's going on. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. We need to increase our communication and be respectful to one another. We're not opposing one another, we're working together. We need our developers, we need our directors and our staff, and we need to just work together. So I hope in the spirit of compromise, we can come together and show that we can play well and work well together and just go from there. I will yield.
Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, it is the original motion plus a feasibility study. Is that what we'll be voting on tonight?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that. I honestly don't appreciate Mr. Young's comment on the fact that the communication hadn't, I mean, when I left here 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty good line of communication, and all of a sudden we got a whole huge, another addition. So I think that's slightly out of line to suggest that that was communicated to developer one or Dream Design, or like obviously some of my colleagues pointed out tonight, we didn't know who developer two is, still don't know what they want. I don't even see their project plan anywhere. And I don't think that when you're dealing with somebody who's going to put a $23 million charge on their credit card, I don't think they're going to go build a facility that's not going to work because of a booster station. I think this is going to come up in the future, because I'd like to ask Mr. Del Tech a question about the booster station in Ward 4 that sits below the hill, below the high pressure tank. Was that done with the feasibility study?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many houses does that high pressure water tank serve right now?
Currently, I don't know. It's less than probably 100.
Less than maybe 20?
Oh, I don't believe so. I think it's probably 60, 65 perhaps.
I just want my colleagues, if you want to get educated on some of this stuff, I'll take you in my truck and drive you around town and show you a booster pump that had a feasibility station. Services, I think, maybe less than 50 for sure. But the point is, I don't think that, and thank you, Mr. Tech, for the answer. I don't think that Mr. Treelor and his organization is going to build a $500 million project that can't be serviced by the water. I think the big key here is, and I'd have a question for Kyle, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, please.
My question would be, are you qualified to do a feasibility study, your engineering firm?
Yes, we could perform the
You've
feasibility
done them before,
study.
right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. We could look at this area. We've already started. So to we've looked at this area, we've looked at the tanks that contribute to this, we've run tests on this. We've went so far as to look at the types and sizes of pumps and what the friction losses would be to do this as a regional station.
Okay, so then give us a little bit of an explanation between, I think where we're getting caught up is, and I want to make sure I got this right, we're looking at, do we need a regional station or do we need a smaller station? And then the pump station, does it circulate the water both ways, both directions, towards Elkville, towards the high tower and away? Or does it go one way or the other?
What we'll do
like a loop?
Is we'll have this, so we've got this area, we're gonna lift the water up to this higher elevation, right? And that's gonna
From where's the water going to come from?
It's gonna come from we got a 20-inch low pressure main in East Anamosa Street, and we need to boost it up to provide pressure to service. We have a higher ridge that runs from behind Menards all the way to the east past Elkvale, which is going to service this entire area. Now, the booster station, we have no problems with the feasibility study. I just want to make that clear. We will, and we have looked at if it's decided that this isn't to be
Can I stop you for a minute?
If this isn't to be a regional station, we still need to put a booster station in. We're saying that we can do the study. If a regional station is called for and this is a good spot, we'd like to do the regional station.
What's the difference between a regional station and just a pump station? Because obviously, the pump station's planned. One of the reasons that we moved it was because of the phasing of the financing of the project, right? It's $1 million project for that pump station, and if you put it up front, then they got $1 million upfront cost going into a pump station before they collect any revenue to pay for the pump station. So I hope that we understand that part. So what's the difference between a pump station and a regional pump station?
So it'd be the size of the pumps and how much water.
So how much dollar-wise?
We're looking at about $950,000 for a regional station.
And that's what we've got calculated in here right now.
Right.
So we're not really shortening the system here, but I think the staff wants to be comfortable that if it's a regional station, and then I think the feasibility, because they're worried about it getting pumped back up to the high pressure, so does it need to be here or closer to Elkville, right?
Right.
That's what we come down to.
Exactly.
Hope that is clear as mud to everybody, so, thank you.
John Roberts.
I'm getting out. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I forgot to get myself out.
Okay, Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. With the time that I had left, if Patsy and our staff says there needs to be a study for the regional facility, then I totally trust them and agree with them that that needs to be done. So, because they're looking out for our future and what's going to be the best interest of the city, which is what they're hired to do, and they do a great job of it. So that does need to be part of what this thing's going to be as we move forward. And I appreciate that being added to this, because they know more than any of us sitting up here if that, why there needs to be a regional facility. And Mr. Weifenbach, I appreciate you asking that question, because that's been an area of concern. So if they say that needs to be done, then it needs to be done, and I'm glad that we're adding it to it, because I think that raises the palatability of the whole project. Yield. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, which is the original motion, which includes adding the feasibility study to it. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, item 33 is the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,520,269.02.
Approved by someone over there? Jason, and a second by Laura Armstrong. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, anyone object to adjourning? Okay, we're adjourned, everyone. Thank you.